A quick college baseball note, because he's a familiar face here. Paul Maneri is going to retire after 21 years as the head baseball coach at LSU. So that will be a major job that will be open. Two major jobs in the SEC in college baseball, Texas A&M and LSU. All right, let's shift gears because it's not only football that'll go a little chaos when the dead period ends. It will also be college basketball. So we turn to a guy that a lot of you follow and you wait on every tweet. It is Jake Weingarten from Stock Risers. Jake, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
Doing well. I appreciate you having me again. How are you doing?
Good. It's been a while. I think we were talking during the shutdown last year when we were trying to figure out how all this recruiting was going to work. Well, we made it through a recruiting cycle, and now we're back to live periods coming up. And I know a lot of people are excited, including around here, where Omaha will host an Adidas live period coming up in July. What do you think that will be like in the college basketball world for the 22 prospects and 23 as well when we get back to live periods, which we did not get last year?
I mean, first of all, I'm super excited to be back, man. I mean, the last year and a half just about has been absolutely hectic. It was a fight. Everyone had to deal with some crazy stuff. But, thankfully things are starting to become normal again as far as basketball goes. Same thing. Everything's starting to feel normal again, and it's such an amazing feeling. And, they just announced Peach Jam will be a 12-day event in July. And, all the live period sessions, all the info is getting released. It's amazing. And, for 22 guys and 23 guys, they should, feel amazed as well because you've been working so hard the last year and a half to get back to this point. And, a year and a half of coaches not being able to see you and, really get to know you as a player in person and physically and, watch you live, there's a really big difference between that and watching you over a computer. So it's really important that, players get to build that relationship with coaches, and now you're able to get seen. So it's a really big deal.
So you've been to these before. It's coming to Omaha, as I mentioned, a relationship between Adidas and Omaha Sports Academy. They're going to have a monster live period. They're expecting the named coaches across college basketball to be here. There's a couple of mega NBA stars that are going to be here in person because they're bringing their teams here. For an average fan to go to a live period and watch, what should they be watching? What should they expect?
Man, you should expect competition and toughness. All these kids have something to prove. I think if you're an NBA fan and you go to something like that, you're going to be amazed. I know when I was first getting into recruiting in high school basketball, going to that compared to an NBA game, there's such a drastic difference because every game means something. You're being watched. So as a fan, getting to go to these games and, seeing guys that you haven't seen before or seeing that five-star prospect, it's a really big deal. And the atmosphere is just insane because every game matters. And if you're an average fan, what I look for when I go to games, when I'm off or when I'm not working, if I'm going to just a regular game in my area or, regular event, I'm trying to find some underrated talent. I'm trying to find those guys that, not everyone's looking at or, those hidden gems. And, you'll find those. There's a lot of times you go to an event and you walk in and you're like, oh, shoot, who's this guy? And, that's kind of how these events work. And, if you're an average fan, obviously you're going to look for some talent.
What's your feel on kind of a sentiment going on in college basketball right now? Hey, we don't want to put all of our scholarships on high school kids. Maybe we recruit one or two high school kids and we save 2 or 3 scholarships if we have those available for portal guys. Are you getting that sentiment in the industry as well?
Yeah, but not necessarily with every program. The transfer portal went from 1,000 names to about 1,800 almost in a 2-month span. So, it's kind of insane. Now there's a full database on transfers, but, with the dead period being over with and, things kind of being back to normalcy, we got to ask ourselves, how's the transfer portal going to be for the next few years? Is it going to stay like this, or was this a one-time thing because of the pandemic we had? There's a lot of questions to be asked. If the transfer portal becomes a regular thing and, guys do take the opportunity to transfer and maybe find a fresh start after, everything that happened this year, then, I could see some programs wanting to recruit experience over high school kids. So, there are tons of different ways you can go that route. personally, I've talked to some coaches within college basketball. Some are only looking at the transfer portal. Some are looking at only high school right now. It all really depends your scholarship situation and, what you want in a player.
Jake Weingarten joining us, and Jake is the founder of stockrisers.com. You want the latest in college basketball recruiting, you go to Jake. He's constantly tweeting. He's probably tweeting right now as he's doing this interview. When we talked last year, because it's kind of, I think about when we talked for the first time, to where like Creighton and Nebraska were in trying to build their classes. Let's first start with Creighton. They are putting to, not completely, they still got a spot open and they're still chasing Trey Alexander, but they are putting to bed their greatest recruiting class ever. Your thoughts on Creighton's class that they're putting together, or they have put together?
I love Creighton's class. It starts with Ryan Nembhard. I'm a really big Ryan Nembhard guy. I think he's very overlooked and underrated. Very, very talented point guard and one of the best playmakers. I got the chance to watch this past season. Getting Arthur Kaluma was a really big deal. He's an absolute animal. I watched him put up like 30 points, 20 rebounds type of thing at the grind session one time. And, he's a really good player. Mason Miller is obviously a guy that we've talked about. He's been committed since last November. So that was a few months back, but he's really good, 6'9", great size, great skill set. John Christophilis is a guy that's, not ranked extremely high, but, I think will play his role, and whatever he's asked to do is what Creighton will get. And, as far as the overall class, I do think it's an amazing class, and all the talents do go along with each other. But the thing that's amazing to me is this class is so amazing, and they lost Ty Washington. And that's the crazy thing to me, because with or without him, this class is excellent. So, it was a great job by the coaching staff. And, like you said, they're still going after Trey Alexander. And if they do get Trey Alexander, they do have a really, really good shot at winning the Big East, in my opinion.
How do they sustain this type of recruiting? Their peers in the Big East, a recruiting class like Creighton, they'll go, hey, we just had that. But this is unique to Creighton. How does a school like Creighton, which, they're not saying, hey, let's stay in the 500-mile radius. They become a national recruiting operation. I look at even some of their offers in the last week with the new assistants that they've added. How does a school like Creighton maintain this kind of pace in recruiting?
Honestly, to sustain that recruiting success, you got to win. And winning on a platform is really important. For Creighton to go in and grab a victory against Kansas, that's really important, because there's people watching that, and you never know which recruit is watching which game, and you never know which recruit is looking into which school. You never really know. So the thing with me is winning and, being able to develop guys and, get to the NCAA tournament. That stuff is important to a recruit. Yeah, going to the NBA is the ultimate goal and the ultimate dream. But while you're in college, yeah, some guys might just be there for the 6 months to, get better and possibly win. But there are guys that are going in and saying, hey, if I'm there for a year, I want to win. Or if I'm there for 2, 3, 4 years, I want to win a national championship. So to be able to win, I think is a really big deal in recruiting. And obviously the facilities and the arenas and the platform come with it. And the Big East is not at all a bad platform. I'm in New York myself, and St. John's doesn't have the biggest arena, and it doesn't have, the 5-star talents, but they're getting local kids, and now they're starting to, recruit guys out of the state, and, being able to say that you can make a run in the conference while getting to play at Madison Square Garden, stuff like that is really important. So for Creighton, just staying on that winning path and doing it at a national scale is a really big deal. How
does UConn impact the rest of the teams in the Big East in recruiting?
You said, how does UConn impact the rest of the team?
Yeah.
UConn did an excellent job in recruiting, man. What Hurley is doing over there and him bringing in all these top 100 guys that, are getting high praise across the country, it's a big impact. And the Big East and UConn being back in itself is a really big deal, because UConn's a legendary school. Kemba Walker a few years ago with that legendary shot. I know in this generation that's a moment that people don't forget. So UConn being back in the Big East and, being able to win on that national scale, that's going to be important. Like I said, with Creighton, to sustain recruiting and, stay on that right path, winning pretty much more important than a lot of things, obviously, than the platform and getting to the NBA. So winning would be a big deal.
Yeah, I know because of you being in New York and he was at St. John's, you know Matt Abdelmassi a little bit. You know of his track record. Probably not surprising what he's done in a short time in Lincoln in recruiting with Fred.
Yeah, no shock at all with Matt. When I was first starting on the grassroots circuit, Matt's a guy that I was able to see in person recruiting, and he was recruiting a kid that I thought was really underrated and a kid that nobody was looking at named Mario Medink. So I was able to see Matt firsthand, recognize a guy that I recognize as an underrated talent. So that was really cool to see. But to see him bring in the guys he brought in this year in such a short amount of time, it just shows if a coach is under the right system and the right platform, sky's the limit. And with Matt, I think it's kind of that situation. And he's recruiting guys like Avery Brown and all those guys for Nebraska. And, I think he has a great shot at landing those guys all because of his personality and, his plans for each of his recruits. He's not a BS type of guy. He's a guy that's going to be straightforward and, wants to see you, succeed.
How will Bryce McGowan's be in the Big Ten?
Unreal. If I had to use one word, it would be unreal. Bryce is a kid that I've been able to watch since he was a seventh grader and a kid that, I've covered for years. And at the Iverson Classic, I was able to talk to – I wasn't there personally, but afterwards, after the Iverson Classic, I was able to talk to some NBA scouts, and they were blown away with Bryce and, his ability to create space and shoot off the dribble and, run the floor and use his size to play defense, stuff like that. His upside is ridiculous. And, entering the Big Ten, a conference that, is going to have a lot of talent and a lot of guys out of his class that he's familiar with, I think it's going to be a great thing for Fred Hoiberg. And, he's the highest rated recruit. So, in school history. So that's a big deal as well. And, once again, NBA scouts are impressed. He had an excellent senior season, excellent junior season, and like I said, his upside is just ridiculous.
We'll finish here. Let's go a little national. You talked about got to go. Guys want to go to the NBA. They want to win. They want to play for championships. Gonzaga checks all of those boxes. But Jake, put this in perspective. What they have done in recruiting the last 2 years, and especially where they're at right now with this class. How is Mark Few doing it? I mean, he's getting kids that are being recruited by the Blue Bloods to move all the way across the country to go to Spokane, Washington. How is Gonzaga able to put together this class, which is their best, and includes McDonald's All-Americans, which they haven't had before?
They're a basketball powerhouse. That's the most simple way I could really explain it, and it's confirmed that they're a basketball powerhouse. And I do think this might be a bold statement, and I know I'm not the first person that has said this, but Gonzaga basketball can literally be a dynasty. Once they get a national championship, which I believe they will, especially with guys like Hunter Salas and Chet Holmgren going there. But they're a basketball powerhouse. And, to be an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid and go to a place like that where there's no professional sports teams and it's not a big city or anything like that, you're going in there with a nice facility, a nice arena, and a chance to just lock in and get better at basketball. And the reason I use basketball powerhouse is because it's strictly basketball up there. It's strictly business. And I think that's why Mark Few is so successful alongside his staff, is because, you have this nice pitch and being able to say, I've had NBA guys, I've sent guys to the league, I have facilities here. It's quiet here. You'll be able to have 24-hour access to a gym, and you'll be able to play on a national level. What is there to complain about in that pitch? So, it's Mark Few. I've said it before. I had predicted that they were going to win the title this year, but now that they didn't win it this year, I think they'll 100% win it next year, or we'll be in great conversation for that.
Take out Kentucky. Why is the SEC so appealing to recruits across the country?
It's a tough conference. It's been a tough conference, in my opinion. The SEC is up there with the ACC, and, like I said, toughness is a really big thing. And I was discussing with you before how, guys don't necessarily come into college, just saying, okay, I'm going to stay here 6 months, go to the NBA. They come in with a winning mentality, and toughness is a part of that. And the SEC is a really tough conference. And Xavier Wheeler, who's going to Kentucky next year after transferring from Georgia, is a good example here. That's an SEC point guard right there. Toughness, runs the floor, hard-nosed, very gritty, physical for his size, and all those kinds of things. That's what you see out of an SEC player. And when I saw the list of his finalists and him having LSU and Kentucky on there, I'm like, okay, he's going to one of these two schools. He's definitely staying in the SEC because he fits the mold of an SEC player, which is that toughness, that gritty. And outside of that, their track record in sending guys to the pros is unreal. So like I said, the guys, these recruits' goals going into school is, either winning or getting that ultimate goal of going to the NBA, and that's what you get when you're in the SEC.
How does he's got allegations swirling around his program? How does Will Wade able to continue to recruit at the level he does?
Once again, it's the system, and them having a winning past and getting to the tournament and stuff like that, and obviously those scandals and everything that was going around. Could be, kind of a tip-off for a recruit. But, now that they've been able to prove that they could win beyond that stuff and still recruit at that level, it's still very enticing because you're in the SEC and you're going to play at the national level, and they've sent guys to the NBA over the past few years. So when Efton Reed actually committed there a few weeks ago, I wasn't really surprised at all.
One quick thing, and we'll let you go, Jake. I know you're busy. I always appreciate your time. This is from a listener that is a KU fan. They want your thoughts on the last class that KU just put together and what your thoughts are on Bill Self's recruiting going forward with the NCAA and FBI kicking tires in Lawrence.
Kansas's last class is one that I liked a lot, and I'll start with Bobby Pettiford. That's a point guard I've been able to watch for, 2-3 years already, and that was a guy that they brought in after he decommitted from Louisville. So for them to pick him up late and, get a guy that's going to come in and, possibly play right away. He's injured right now. He hurt his foot, I believe, but he's going to be able to come in right away and, have an impact at the guard spot, similar to Devin Dotson. They're kind of similar in game. And, then they had Zach Clements, who's really good. He was at Sunrise Christian, KJ Adams, Kyle Cuff, and then they brought in 3 or 4 transfers. So, they brought in how many guys? They brought in 8 guys in that recruiting cycle. So, it was obviously a monster class. And, Bill Self, like I said, with Will Wade, is a guy that's been able to win. So, that's a big deal in sustaining your recruits is when you win. When you lose, the recruits are probably like, okay, now I got to go into a losing system and I got to adjust and, help get back on that winning path. But to be able to be a part of a program that's had a winning path and be a part of that, that's important when you're in your recruiting process.
Great stuff, Jake. As always, I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anytime.
That's Jake Weingarten, who is from Stock Risers, all over college basketball recruiting, and a big fan of Creighton and Nebraska's recruiting classes. All right, 12:21. Quick break. We'll get you update on what's going over on Tal Anderson Field. And Nebraska baseball is underway as well as they begin their final series of the regular season against Michigan. We'll do all that. Dirk Chatelain coming up in less than an hour right here on the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone.